am translating. So
You-
fine.
How can you listen so carefully and be translating at all this at the same time?
I've been doing that for a long time.
Your creative talents are beyond us all. Yeah, what do I want to say at this moment? You know, in some sense, I think so much has been circulated already that we're already in connection, that so many of the sentiments are the same. Let me try to talk about that for a moment in terms of a consciousness of connection. That we become very aware of each other and how much we mean to each other and how interrelated we all are. And it comes through in multiple ways, multiple creative ways of people reaching out to us. I think you're probably like me, you get messages from people you haven't heard from in a long time, coming from places that you haven't been for years. You know, a message from Argentina, from Taiwan, from Europe and various countries and so on, just people I've known years ago, all saying, how are you? What's happening there? Let us talk together. Realizing we need each other and we're all touched by what's going on. And this has brought forth so many creative ways of trying to help each other. And again, I think these have circulated as well. Probably all of you have seen the singing from the windows of apartments in Italy. I mean, it was a viral email that went around. But even in your local areas where people have done things to help each other, to one after another, there will be a community chat board where people are doing things for each other. I have to share the most creative one I just heard about this morning. All right, we're all quarantined here pretty much, but you can take people for walks. And children are all cooped up and they need to get out. So you can take them for walks, but they're often bored. And so what, as a community event, and I have no idea how it was organized, people put teddy bears in the windows, like, you know, so that when the children went by the neighborhoods, the parents could say, play games. Do you see the teddy bear? How many do you see? Where is the teddy bear? And this was all just a communal event which made life a little bit better for each other. And again, I think we all know them. We've experienced them. And it's part of the reason I think we're all here, because it's as a reaching out to each other. And it's an attempt to help each other in some way. Now, we also recognize that it hasn't all gone that way. And that we know in areas where people disregard the rules. People, here we have a problem with scamming, where people, you get phone calls and messages that are really trying to profit from our situation. We have a government that decided to make a fight with China. Why? Do we need that? Yeah, absurd. So it hasn't all gone well, but a lot of it has. And again, I think that that's, again, why we are here. But my question, in some sense, what bothers me is what now? Okay, we have this common consciousness. We understand somehow that these connections are absolutely essential. We understand that it's universal. It's not just us here already. What do we have? 6 or 8 countries represented just here.
I think we have about 15 countries
15
and
countries represented here. Incredible. Incredible. We could have multiplied it if we had a common language. Everywhere there's a sense we should do something. This is perhaps the beginning of something. But here's why I'm disturbed, and I share this, and I don't know exactly where to go. We have been through something like this before. I mean, beginning with Chernobyl, and when we realized that atomic, the atomized atmosphere could kill a lot of people, that we have the potential. We have been through economic crashes together. Even this recent and incredibly important international environmentalist concern with youth communicating around the world, moving out of schools, where people are in the streets demonstrating about the climate, that we must do something. We are in jeopardy. We know that. So what happens? Again, our governments begin to fight with each other. The United States drops out of the climate accord. I mean, what sense does that make? India says, why should we do that? You have all benefited. Why should we be cutting emissions? Again, there's this competition. Well, you do it. Let's see you go first. Oh, we're going to be hurt by this. You have much to gain. That is a competition of, I want mine. I want to be sure I'm all right. I want to assure my country, my community, my family. And so, yes, we can be content that in our communities, we are helping each other, and sometimes further. But what happens after this crisis is terminated? What happens as the curve moves down and the pandemic subsides and we can be relieved and we can finally be with each other and go to the stores and be out with friends and restaurants and so on? What happens? One of the things that I will send to you, if you haven't already seen it, was a wonderful video from the Rotterdam Symphony that has been out on YouTube. And a lot of you know this. I will have it sent out to you. It's this wonderful display of where the members of the symphony are each in their own space. And they have their instrument. And they together, technologically, begin to play one by one and join in Beethoven's Ode to Joy, one after the other. They create this harmony together, this sense of purpose and this sense of destiny. And eventually, they're all playing together, all connected. And then the chorus comes in. And it's a very moving video. And again, it's one you should all see. And at the end, I am moved to do something, and not just for that moment, be moved by kind of this consciousness of community, of connection, of a universal connection. Then what? I mean, we talk together today, but then what? Do we simply go back to the lives we had before and remember those were really some really wonderful moments And then it becomes a little bit like the climate accord, and people are not quite getting there yet. And maybe in 20 years, we will have emissions cut. So I guess I want to leave us with also a continuing conscience, and something like the Rotterdam Symphony, a challenge to our own creativity, to see if there's some way in which we might, with this group here or with our connections, create something that would actually move the world into a better place. So that's my hope, my challenge. It's a prick to my conscience that I hope will not end. And I appreciate your being here. Thank you, Miriam.
Thanks, Ken. So thank you. So Anne, do you want to continue? Anne Radford? Espero que puedan seguir el chat. Yes, Anne.
Yep, fine. Thank you. Thank you, Ken, for bringing your wonderfully observant self to our consciousness. I think what I was aware of when you were talking was how we are reacting to this, in my case, a lockdown in London, and other people the same. To begin with, it was a shock. And I think some of us, myself included, to begin with, sort of thought, well, what am I going to do if I can't meet up with my friends? I'm used to going and having a cup of tea, glass of wine in a local place that's very close to where I live. And so that sense of not being able to have that physical connection with people just kind of puts me into the point, but we still have that longing for the social connection. And I think of the many things that I've learned from appreciative inquiry over the years is it's helped me be very much aware of whatever environment we're in, we're part of a whole system. And that has been very comforting for me, because I'm in my flat, I'm on my own, I can't go and meet up with my friends. And yet, as you say, I've had more conversations with people in the last few weeks than I have had in some ways before. And I'm also aware that not only is there that social connection that we want, and because of our experience, I think, with appreciative inquiry, we can create online. It goes beyond a kind of social connection, and we really create a kind of collective presence. And that collective presence can then go into co-creating all manner of things. And it's as though the physical distance doesn't matter. It's as though we forget that we are in 12 or 15 or however many countries, many more cities, that we may know somebody for several years, and we may see someone's face for the first time. There is that sense, or in a situation like this, where we come together with a sort of willingness and to come with a higher intention. I don't believe that we're going to solve the problems of the world, because I think that what will happen is that as soon as we get through this crisis, the speed of change in the world is so fast that another one is going to come, and another one is going to come. So I think increasingly the challenge that I'm aware of is we're going to need to do that connecting a lot quicker than we've been used to. That we're going to need to do the presencing and the engagement with many different groups of people in ways that we know how to do, but we also have got to do it much quicker and much more often. Thankfully, over the years, AI practitioners have used technology really well. We've pushed the boundaries. We run online summits. We do online training. We have people in small groups. We have people in large groups. We have increasingly expanded the fact that for meaningful engagement, it doesn't have to be face-to-face, literally in the room. We can have that engagement in those breakout rooms, forgetting about the distance and just focusing on listening to each other or asking those conscious type questions. So I've gone through a sort of stage where I'm actually quite hopeful about what is going to come out of this. I wasn't several weeks ago, but as I am just aware about the connection and all the rest of it, it just seems to me that we can find meaning, collective meaning, and co-create our ways forward in a way that we've been forced to do. None of us asked for this, but we're here. And we have the skills, and we have the presence, and we have the presence of mind to be able to do it. And so I guess I have a lot to thank appreciative inquiry and social constructionism for, because it puts me and others in that wonderful situation of being able to look at the future in a much more imaginative and less frightening way. I don't know if others see the future the same way. I have no idea what the answers are, but I think the potential for more creative partnerships, more imaginative ways forward is just there, and we need to tap into it. So perhaps I ask the question of, do others share my sense of optimism or hope, even given the somewhat crazy situation that many of us think we're in? There I'll stop.
Thank you, Anne. Bueno, espero que puedan seguir la traducción. Very meaningful, very meaningful. Do you want to follow from this?
Yes, I would like to pick up Anne's question. So her question: do others share my sense of hope and optimism? Yes, I do. And this is really a both end. It will be painful as well. I had a conversation with Anastasia Bukashin, who is an AI, long-standing AI member of this community. And she described how the situation is developing in South Africa. And it's quite dramatic. And still, I do share your sense of hope and optimism, and it is because of what is, I think, what is the potential that we have, as well described by Ken and by yourself. And Ken, using the example of the symphony, you taking it to the very personal level, And I guess that's where I get my sense of hope as well. I mean, earlier today, I delivered a webinar on appreciative OD, organizational development, that was organized by a friend of mine who runs a chain of restaurants. And they, as you all know, I guess pretty much of every country that's probably present, restaurants had to close. So you can either sit and wait. But he said, I'd like to do something for my clients and my community, suppliers, employees, etc., etc. And he organized a series of webinars this week and next week, and it's being called. He called it, if I translate it from Dutch, it's translated "This Rounds on Me," like when you're in a bar. And he and so I did my webinar, and he said, what I'd like you to do, quite traditionally, can you give me 3 takeaways which you think are important, so in what's happening. And I guess this situation also allows us to reflect on what we hear. I mean, appreciative inquiry, what Ken has been doing his life work on social constructionism. We know that words create our worlds. And I find it fascinating from an AI perspective to listen to the various leaders in the world. When I listen to the leaders in the US, in Brazil, I get a completely different image and picture than when I listen to leaders of some of the other countries, including my own. I normally really enjoy being in the Netherlands, but when I heard our king and our prime minister talking about the community, not for a single time using the words war and fights, and really talking about that maybe even a bigger threat than the coronavirus is the loneliness virus. So building and focusing on the community and the relationships. The mayor of Rotterdam, one of the biggest city, who had to close the beach, but personally got involved in the wording. He said, we should not use signs that you cannot go to the beach. I mean, stay away from that. Just make signs that we really request you to go home. It's a difference in the wording that creates a different atmosphere, as we can see, I would say, in the different countries in the world. But what I also want to do is to share the 3 takeaways that I had used earlier today. I think that this moment, as I mentioned the word reflection earlier, this moment also allows us to reflect, as I heard Anne and Ken do as well, on the question, what is your purpose? What are we here to do? I guess to be able to step out this rat race for a moment, and I fully agree with Anne that once we return to normal, we'll see the speed of this world, the speed of change will probably even increase further, and there is no foreseen end to this. So why not use this opportunity when you are in a confined space, whether it's a full lockdown or whether it's in a situation like in the Netherlands where it's still relatively open to go, and where you want, even if they invite us to keep a distance, well, that's really enforced to keep a distance. What really is your calling in what you're doing, and what can you do in this situation, whether it's the story of the teddy bears or whether it's the story of the Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra, or whether it's my friend of the restaurant chains who is organizing this series of Let Me Buy You One. So I think that is one of the takeaways that I shared this afternoon. I think the other one, and I heard Anne and Ken both reflecting on that or mentioning that, involve the community. I think the teddy bear story was beautiful in the sense that it's a community that does this for other members in the community. And I guess this also shows that we as humans are, I think, inherently good. That's our nature. When people ask for help, we help each other. So in that process dare to be creative. I mean, who could have thought of doing this series of webinars of I'll buy you around, or thinking of the way to conduct an Ode to Joy, the way the orchestra did it. So dare to be creative. And finally, I think be aware that, and this is building on what N said as well, that the real change has to come. We'll see a different world. I mean, from a small country that I live in, looking at how the US is in a way behaving, at least the government is behaving, from a society, from a country that in World War I, World War II, and when the Ebola virus was there, took a lead and helped the world. Now it is like this President Trump says, it's America first. And I think when this is over, we'll see that the stage of the world will have changed. And we should, I guess, that's not good, that's not bad. It's just happening. And I would say be mindful of it. And let's see what meaning we can make of that. Having said that, I would like to see and pass on the word and ask Jackie to, if that is okay, Miriam, if that is what you want.
Jackie, yes, fantastic.
Yeah, to ask Jackie to.
Thank you. Así vamos a escuchar a Jackie Stavros, que ha escrito un libro sobre conversations worth having. Jackie, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, what I think is going on is we have gotten 5 gifts today. And the first gift is the gift that Miriam brought us all together. She orchestrated 100 people. She told me I had to get in early or I would lose my seat. And so I want to thank Miriam for she just gets 2 things. And if you're on this call, you are all blessed. We're all blessed right now. And I'm thankful for that. And I love Ken's story about the teddy bear because you can learn from your communities. We have bus drivers who were keeping employed, and instead of picking up and dropping off kids, they're picking up and dropping off meals to families in our community. So you can be creative. And Ken talked about the bad, and I have to tell you, when I turn on the world news, I have a heavy heart. It hurts. I start thinking, I got the virus, I can't breathe. And I just learned to pause, take 4 deep breaths, and get curious and get back to the gifts that you talked about, which was what can we do for our communities? So, Miriam gave us a gift. Ken gave us the gift today. You gave us, I heard 4 gifts, he said 3. And then having Ann Radford, the AI practitioner, that has been a gift to the world for such a long time. So, if I didn't have this global crisis and was on lockdown, Ann, I couldn't be working on the SOAR featured article that's due on April 1st. And I think there are so many things that are going wrong, and we've learned that you can't ignore these problems, but appreciative inquiry has taught me a different perspective to address where we are at. And I'd like to just thank everybody who shared, especially Anne, you shared the gift of hope and optimism, and to take these gifts and take the 100 of us, and we need to spread a positive contagion. We need to do our best to keep ourselves and those with us well. So I'm really excited. And you planted a seed where he said, what is our purpose? And Miriam asked me yesterday, if I came back on April 15th, what would I talk about? I said, I would want to teach people how to soar into purpose. So I didn't know you were going to say that, Miriam, but just being together in community with you is a great way to end my day. So thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Case, do you want to come now or should we listen if there are any questions? ¿Hay alguna pregunta or Case? Do you want to come in?
No, although so many things have been said already, which are so helpful, that I would like to add a few things. First, speaking about the breathing, let's breathe 4 times, like Jackie said. Let's breathe in at the moment. Hola, buenos días, tardes, noches a todos. Let's breathe in. And just be aware what a luxury it is if we can breathe in so good, because not all of us have this luxury at the moment. And then I'm still about these teddy bears of Ken, because my link is to these situations that children are at home and parents, possibly lots of you are also in the same situation, and at least you know such people. Parents are suddenly transformed into 24/7 teachers, entertainers, cooks, whatever. And this is the moment where appreciative inquiry, and especially the capability to see possibilities, is required. So when I thought about entertaining children or having children at home, so next thing I was thinking was music. Let's make music together. Maybe not the Rotterdam Philharmonic, but the family Philharmonic. And no, we don't need instruments. We just put on the radio, and with some pots and pans, you make a beautiful jam session. And I would say that is entertainment, but it's also school. It's the music lessons. So having this all in mind, and I was looking at the mirror and considering the fact that the hairdressers don't work anymore for quite some time here in Holland or in Spain, that I started to look a little bit like Neil Young, and that inspired me to make some music for you. There's a song that may fit the situation, and there's one line I would stress for you. There it is. Old man lying by the side of the road with the lorries rolling by. Blue moon sinking from the weight of the load, and the buildings drape the sky. Cold wind ripping down the alley at dawn, and the morning paper flies. Dead man lying by the side of the road with the daylight in his eyes. Don't let it bring you down, it's only castles burning. Find someone who's turning, and you will come around. Don't let it bring you down, it's only castles burning. Find someone who's turning, and you will come around. And you will come around.
Thank you, Kay. Someone was asking what is the title of the song.
So there we go. This is the song called Don't Let It Bring You Down by Jong. And this specific line is find someone who's turning. And that triggers me constantly. Find someone who's turning. So you may be stuck sometimes. And who are the ones in your network around you that are moving, that are creative, that see possibilities? So, and I was thinking, probably sometimes your children will be bored and then they ask you, what should I do? And I don't want to do this and don't want to do that. So what if you turn it, would you turn it around? And when you are stuck, you ask your children, because who are the ones who are turning? Who are the ones who are creative? These are your children. So why shouldn't you ask your child, I'm stuck, what should I do now? I guess you get probably a most highly creative answer of your children. So what would that be if you do it like that? To finish my appreciative inquiry sermon here and thinking about children again. So for all parents that at sometimes find their children making noise and you feel like shouting, be quiet. First of all, appreciate yourself, be kind to yourself. Sometimes they are noisy and you are perfectly allowed to be feeling to shout. But about consistency, if you shout, be silent, they won't understand. So what if you start to try and whisper, be silent? Of course, in all the noise, they won't hear you, so you have to whisper again, be silent. And maybe 10 times, but at some point, the child will look at you and say, what are you saying there? Be silent. I think this kind of consistency will make us smile. And when we are not consistent, let's also smile. So let us smile and let's find someone who's turning. I found someone who is turning, and that is fantastic. Pasa la palabra.
Thank you. Ken, there is a question about what do you think about what Harari says? And let me find the question because it's in between the translation. Yes. What do you think about, you all know Harari says about the real superiority of human beings is the intelligence that is in the human collectiveness and not the single individual intelligence. And what does this imply? So this is a question about Harari. And another question from Pep Huetas, has nature come to rescue us? So I give the word to Ken and then we can have conversation.
Let me, I mean, those are big questions, but let me take a piece of each and link it back to some of the things that were just said to see if I can press the conversation forward. What is intelligence? It seems to me from a constructionist perspective, intelligence is something that we co-create. Nothing is intelligent until we agree that that's intelligent. So the very possibility of being intelligent depends on a relationship. And let's not let nature be teaching us. Let nature be part of the co-creation as another participant. So we and what we call nature are all moving to create what we will or will not call intelligence. All right? And that could be different for different people at different times and so on. Okay? So the creation is us all together. Now, let me tie that back to some of the things that were said in the discussion. because I really appreciate so much what was offered. I love the optimism that was displayed, beginning with Anne, picked up with Yup and Hayes and Jackie. I love the sense of creativity that was we can move forward. I like all that, all the way from suggesting the possibilities in various creative conditions and all the way to a song. Wonderful. But let me use that to press forward a minute. A couple of comments that came out and were repeated in several of those offerings about the community. We can help each other. We can do things for each other. We can care for each other. We can create for each other, with each other. And in the traditional appreciative inquiry style, ask in terms of the a question that can create the future: who is the community? What community? Where does it stop? Next door? Down the street? My city? My country? My. What if we could answer that question with a community of the whole? So what we're talking about is not local. It's not even regional or national. It's the well-being of the whole, we who co-create in the whole, and that includes nature. What if that could be the answer? So what would the future, in part, to me, rests on taking this consciousness that was emerging now and linking it to the community of the whole, what I would call the communiverse. All right, and I mean to include nature in that. And when it gets to be purpose, that's another question. What is our purpose? What if we could answer that with that well-being of the communiverse? And it's not my, it is all. We are all in all. And that this kind of creative thinking that we have could somehow be linked to co-caring of us, because our future, I mean, which hangs in the balance. And what Anne said earlier about it's going to be here again, and it may not be this crisis, it will be another one. And it will move, as she said, very rapidly. And if we're not somehow linked in a way which, in terms of the common good, I don't know where we go from there. Then I lose a little bit of optimism, I must tell you. But I like to use that pessimism as a spur to an optimistic hope that yes, we could, in the same way we are creative with our communities of local and with each other, be creative in some way, using this huge capacity to be able to communicate like this for the global good, for the communiverse.
Thanks, Ken. Someone is asking, what initiative can we do to improve social coexistence and participation? Anyone else wants to share something? I mean, Ken shared his ideas, but anyone else would like to share? Anne or Jackie or Case, Yup, or anyone else?
I'll share something. And again, I'm picking on Ken Gergen because I remember a story a long time ago by Ken. You know, everybody's coming together And when the virus goes away, how will people behave? And Ken, and maybe I'll ask you to elaborate. I don't know if I got this story right, but you taught me something a long time ago, the do-over conversation. He's smiling. And, you know, I think with knowing social construction and appreciative inquiry, you're going to make mistakes when we get back to well-being. But if you can just stop yourself and have the courage to ask for a do-over conversation, which I think I'm going to let Ken explain it.
Yes, because I don't know how to translate that. How do you say it? Dual?
A do-over, D-O, and let's do it over and do it. You know, what outcome would you prefer? So I'm going to put it back to Ken because he's smiling, but I remember the do-over conversation you taught me many, many years ago.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Yeah, this is in the context of talking about emotions and conversation and how we can get wrapped up in things like bad conversations or mutual anger or mutual blame. And it, like, you did that wrong. No, it was your fault. No, I can see it was your fault. I mean, it goes on and on. And how Mary and I sort of began to realize that these conversations are not they're rituals. They're like dances that we play together. If you blame me, I blame you. That's just normal dance. So we said, well, look, when we get in a bad conversation, why don't we just do it over again and see if we can do it better? And we've tried this. I come in after a day of hard work and I'm late, and Mary says something, I was really late, where were you? And I say, well, look, I make some excuse, I'm a little bit irritated. We say, well, I'll go out the door and we'll do this again. So it's like, do we have the chance to do it over? And that's the question. And Jackie, maybe I should turn it to you.
Well, that's what I think is you have to have the courage to ask for a do-over, because you're gonna put yourself, based, if words co-construct, there are words that put you into a protect mode, but there are words that put you into a connect mode. And if words matter, we have to make sure that we're using language that connects us to each other and doesn't put us into a protect mode. So I just remember that exact same story. So thank you for sharing it again, because when we click off and we go to our communities, we're going to have to ask at moments for do-over conversations.
Can I add to that? Because this is so beautiful. What happened in the AI trainings a few years ago, and what we included now as a practice, is that we created a specific gesture to notify such a moment, because sometimes you're pretty late to consider that this was a bad conversation, so that everybody is allowed to give a sort of a sign. And some of our students created one of the mudras, the Buddha gestures, which is the Vitarka mudra. And this is what you raise. So you raise when you hear non-constructive language, or when you consider that you find out that you were having non-constructive words yourself, then just put on this simple gesture, which is an invitation for something I didn't know the word yet, for a do-over conversation. So beautiful. Vitarka mudra, it's called. Voila. Thank you.
Thank you, Case. ¿Hay alguna otra pregunta que quieran ofrecer? Carolina, so one question. If the virus was only temporary event, and the deep topic is what's going to happen to our society, our economy. A lot of people are paralyzed economically. It's like a movie that goes slowly. And if the challenge was to construct a different world, the world we dream, how would we do it? With whom? So this is just a comment. No sé si es una pregunta esto, Carolina, es un comentario. Anything else you would like to add before we close the conversation?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to go back to cases. Issue about the conversation and noticing things, and Jackie's input about having a language that is not protective. Now, one of the concerns I have is it seems to me if we are to move forward, we must be able to collaborate in somehow with people from around the world. We must be able to somehow take on conversations in which, in Jackie's terms, would allow us to be accepted by each other, to be listened to by each other, appreciated by each other. I don't know whether we have that skill yet at this point. We often look at language as speaking one's mind. That is, I'm going to tell you what I think. Or talking about what is real and what we must do. And questioning each other. Our education is like that. By and large, we learn what to say about the world and how to argue about it and how to defend our position. So where do we learn the language of collaboration? That yes, I can understand that and I can understand its opposite. And they both have something to say. And I don't have a position, I have a multitude of positions. How do we together move in the multitude? How do we put that together? That's a real challenge to me, is that challenge of learning how to move together and to understand and hear the importance of appreciative inquiry is of enormous consequence, because it was one of the first times that it became clear that if you change the way you talk, you change the questions you ask, you change what it is you're trying to say, and collectively create, it makes an enormous difference. It's not arguing about who's right and who's wrong and who's the problem. It's not arguing about what about my rights? What about you, the oppressor? What about you who don't understand, which is our common everyday language that we have in our country? It changes the consciousness to the way we talk, how we ask the questions, how we treat each other. And that kind of AI is only one of those cases. Learning that kind of way of collaborating, to me, is like, that's a wide open field of invitation for people like us to co-create, help innovate, disseminate, share. So we become conscious of the way we are together and how we say it, what the topics, and so on, so on.
And Ken, if I could just add on to that, it seems to me that that is going to be our learning edge for this next phase, because with, as each of these issues and viruses or whatever they are, the challenges come up. I mean, people are saying we have to, have the resilience to regenerate ourselves. Well, it's not a case of regenerating us individually. It's a case of bringing so many more people into the conversation. People that, as the expression goes, where are the wild ideas? Where are the people that we haven't spoken to yet? Where are the folks that we like to talk to and the folks that we don't like to talk to? And bring them into the room, because everyone's going to have something important to say and to co-create, given the fact that whatever the issue is, whether it's community health or young people sanity or whatever it might be, it's only by having that mixture and kind of wild sort of congregation of different viewpoints that we're going to co-create anything that's going to have any meaning, it seems to me, that will take us forward. Otherwise, we're just going to be spinning wheels.
Yeah.
It's just going to be going round and round in circles like we've been doing before. And, it's going to be hard, but at the same time, I'd rather live, I'm looking at my, however much longer I've got left in these next few years, I'm certainly looking at those in a very different way than I did some time ago. And but we can deal with those different conversations. We know how to listen, we know how to co-create, we know how to move together forward in whatever you choosing language that we want to, that will inspire, and finding metaphors that mean things to us all. It seems to me we know how to do all of that. We just have to keep relearning how to do it with more and more in different groups of people.
Thank you for that.
May I add to that and build on it? I guess that the invitation of our days is to think, beyond the words, or if we do think about the words, that we think about new words like the communiverse that I learned on this call today. But it's also that I bring back, and maybe we should revisit Frank Barrett's booklet, Yes to the Mess, which I think is so appropriate. And it uses the metaphor of the music, of a jazz band. And it's so we very often, I notice that from my teaching, I get very much stuck in the words, but it's like what Case did when he made music, and apparently he's getting ready to make more music, what I can see from my screen. It is trying to include this wider range of ways that we have to communicate. And it's not only the music. Some of you know that I'm an enthusiastic tango dancer, and without words, but with the music and the dance, we are able to create, to connect, to share, and to co-create completely new things. And I guess the challenge for us is to really start using our complete toolbox that we have, whereby we know that, like the basic givens like that, it's not only the words we speak, but maybe even more the words we hear and we listen to and respect, that will help us to create this new, let's say, stage. And it will be a journey with ups and downs. But I want to come back to what Anne said, the optimism. I still feel, the fact that there is 100 people, 100 of us now here, who were at least listening to these words, who stayed on this call for more than an hour. I think that's pretty darn impressive, and gives at least it gives me hope, and feeds my optimism.
Thank you. Bien, vamos a ir cerrando. No sé si Case quería. Did you want to finish with the song, Case? Because before...
I was just, no, not a song, but I was just considering, what if 100 people would open their microphones and we sang Hallelujah together?
Okay.
And then you put your, just as an experiment.
Ok, que Grace propone que pongamos todos el micrófono y cantemos Aleluya juntos.
Una reunión.
Antes simplemente...
Aleluya. 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 Aleluya.
Así.
Bueno, la verdad es que considero que para mí ha sido muy enriquecedor, aunque he estado traduciendo todo el rato. Esto se ha quedado en el chat, que lo hemos grabado y lo pondremos en el blog para que podáis volverlo a leer si queréis. Hemos pensado que en las próximas semanas ofreceremos webinars como este de 1 hora. Los haremos 1 hora antes porque aquí en Europa es un poco tarde ahora, ya son más de las 10 de la noche. Y también deciros que, bueno, tendremos un webinar con Jackie Stavros, otro conmigo y Francesc, que está aquí con nosotros, que es experto en comunicación no violenta. Se ha ofrecido también a tener un encuentro con todos aquellos que trabajan en el mundo de la sanidad y que están viviendo momentos estresantes. Entonces también lo anunciaremos y será bueno que lo podáis dar a conocer a gente del mundo de la sanidad. And thank you so much, Ken, Anne, you, Case, Jackie, y muchísimas gracias a todos.
Gracias, Miriam. Gracias,
Thank you, Miriam.
Santiago,
Thank you very much.
Very much.
so much.
Bye bye.
Abrazo.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Gracias. Gracias.
Besos a todos. Hasta pronto. Buena vida. Cuídense mucho.
Muchas gracias.
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 Chao, Víctor.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Cuídense mucho. Somos todos muy necesarios.
Muchas gracias. Gracias por todas las reflexiones. Gracias, Miriam. Besazo muy fuerte.
Besazo, gracias.
Luego,
Gracias, Miriam.
Gracias, gracias.
Gracias a todo el mundo.
Lorena,
Adiós.
You, dear friend.
Ah, yes. Hi, in Santiago. So good to see you. So good to see you.
We'll be in touch soon.
I look forward to that. Please, let's do so. We'll do so.
¿Marcos se ha ido ya?
no sé.
No sabes. Quería saludar a Marcos. Se fue ya. Bueno.
Hola, Ricardo.
Hola, Miriam.
Hola, Ricardo.
Ricardo.
Santiago.
No te había reconocido. ¿Cómo estás? Qué alegría verte.
Genial. ¿Qué tal en Argentina?
Bien, bien. Bien. Sobrellevando con mucha hidalguía.
Muy bien. ¿Y Cirque? La maga de las nubes. No me oye.
Sí, Cirque.
Hola, aquí estoy viéndote, muy feliz.
¿Cómo
con tu
estás?
movida. Bien, ¿tú?
Bien.
Te ves muy cómodo.
Sí,
Muy
estoy
rico.
cómodo, sí.
Estás ahí a la Bartola, Ricardo, pareces.
Ay, Víctor. Estoy tirado. Tirado y confinado y refugiado. Tengo dos niveles.
Sí, estás de...
Segundo nivel. Pero esto no lo grabes, Miriam.
Oye, Santiago, yo pensaba... Al otro día
Andrea, estás grabando. Puedes parar la grabación, Andrea.
Sí, para la Andrea.